What's going on, guys? Welcome back to shop. Today I thought we would try to go through some of this over-the-top propaganda that I'm seeing coming out of Ukraine and, the Ukraine-Russian conflict that we're all aware of. This stuff, it's every bit as in-your-face Orwellian propaganda as anything they ever said to us during the whole COVID-19 thing that we've all been still just finally shaking off that fucking shackle off our backs now after what, 2.5 years? They're finally starting to open up in some of this stuff. But now they've had to shift everything over to this new thing, the newest imminent threat that's going to kill us all, nuclear war. Brought on by, of course, the evil one, Vladimir Putin, who, unprovoked, he just went into the Ukraine. No one even knew why. No one knew it was coming. It was the first time he ever went in there. It's not like they've had troops lined up in all these regions around the Ukraine all these years. No. This is out of the blue, guys. So if you believe the MSM, you'll believe just what I just said. Otherwise, let's put on the anti-communist glasses and get into the real story. I call this one The Fog of War. Lies, damned lies, and MSM disinformation. If you listen to the Mockingbird media, Russia is getting its ass kicked by the Ukrainian ragtag forces. It is clear that Russia is trying to avoid massive civilian casualties. They have obviously not used their full capabilities. Russian forces have only used a fraction of their capabilities, maybe 10%, let's say. This is self-evident to anyone who is not a leftist commie. So speaking of commies, many of the MSM talking heads are now claiming that Russia is weak and their military is antiquated and obsolete against advanced NATO forces. It almost seems like some of our so-called leaders are intentionally poking the bear in the chest. Many politicians are calling for full-scale war with Russia. They even have a group of 3,000 American volunteers that are headed to the front lines in Ukraine. And I was reading about this, and a very small fraction of these people are actually like ex-combat veterans and stuff like that. Most of them are just like soy boys and stuff that want to go over there and hold an AK-47 and take a selfie and stuff like that. So this could end in real disaster here. So these are untrained people that they're sending over, the majority of them. So the globalist elite like George Soros are backing the Ukraine, and that was in the news last week. But of course he would. After all, he set up the corrupt nation. And if you don't know, go back and look into George Soros's, what is it called, Open Society or something like that. They have their hands all over a lot of the corruption and stuff like that you're seeing coming out of the Ukraine. It's no coincidence. George Soros is an evil dude. I mean, go look at what he's done to every country he's ever put positions against or positions for. The guy is just evil all over. I mean, at one point, he talked about one of the best times of his life was whenever he was rounding up his fellow Jews under Hitler. He called it happy-making times. Go look it up, no doubt. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He said it on a live TV interview, and of course, they didn't follow up with any questions because they revere him. Because anything he says is good as gold. So anyways, back into the story here. It appears that the NWO elites are trying to get us into a full-scale war with Russia. And I would add nuclear war with Russia. No doubt this could be the beginning of World War III if the elites have their way. And it looks like they are having their way. I mean, every single thing I'm seeing is just an escalation of force over and over and over. We're again, the best analogy I can give is we're poking the bear in the chest. Not a good idea. It's a 1,300-pound grizzly bear. It can knock your freaking head off in one swipe. But, here we got all these, soy boys like Lindsey Graham actually calling for the assassination of Vladimir Putin. I don't think that's a very smart idea. So here's what Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Saturday. He warned the West of a wider war if a no-fly zone is set up. So there's been all this talk from NATO and NATO forces and the USA and, congressmen here in the United States about setting up a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Here's what Putin had to say about it. Any movement in this direction will be considered by us as participation in an armed conflict by that country. A declaration of war is what he's saying, in other words. So, not good. And of course, Rhino Lindsey Graham, he was rebuked by lawmakers from across the political spectrum after calling for the assassination of Russian President Vladimir Putin. What a freaking moron. South Carolina can do better than that, soy boy. Let's get it done. Come on, man. Come on, man. Let's get it done. Let's get rid of this clown. I mean, does he represent you? If you're watching this and you're from South Carolina and you're a conservative, does Lindsey Graham represent your values? I'm gonna argue no, he doesn't. So why is he still in there? Why aren't you stepping up to the plate and running against him? I mean, if nothing else, seeing that we can get somebody that has full-scale dementia elected as president of the United States, that kind of lowers the bar on everything else, right? So I'm telling you guys, stop thinking you're not good enough. Go run against these freaking commies. That's the only way we're going to stop them. Oh, God, I can't stand them. So here's what U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said. He's looking very actively at a scheme for Poland to donate Soviet-designed jets to Ukraine and have them replaced with American jets. So there we go. The American taxpayers are going to foot the bill for this. So just go ahead, Poland. Give all your jets away to the Ukraine, even though I'm sure from Putin's perspective, that would be considered a direct act of war against what he's got going on. It'd be like if we were in the middle of Iraq and suddenly Russia came in and started giving the Iraqis Russian airplanes and Russian military equipment to fight back against us. It's just, I know in Afghanistan there was a lot of Russian equipment there, and a lot of that was left over from the time Russia tried to invade and take over Afghanistan and failed. And then, of course, Biden gets in there and fails right on a global stage, on the world stage. Biden failed miserably in Afghanistan. That is what brought this on. That is what brought on and brought out Putin's aggression. He had desires on to do this, to go into Ukraine anyways. Now Biden has given him an excuse. His weakness on a world stage has brought this on. So hours after Blinken said that about sending in military jets to Poland so they could send their jets over to Ukraine, hours after that, the Polish government said the plan was fake news. So they're denying all of it. Probably rightfully smart position for Poland to take, because they don't want to get their ass handed to them by Putin. Because if they openly defy this no-fly zone, or they try to get in airplanes and stuff like that, again, I think Putin is going to view that as, hey, this is a direct attack. You're instrumentally helping these people. We've been, they've been letting us get away with, I guess you could say, bringing over javelins and all these other weapons and stuff. And, there's an American military, there's an American ammunition company that's going to send the Ukraine 1 million rounds and stuff like that. And I guess since that's not, directly sanctioned by the White House, it's probably okay if a private company does that. But it's just really weird to me that all of these people are buying into this stuff, and they're just believing that Zelensky is some sort of like a Captain America or something. He's the best guy in the world. He's like a Marvel superhero from the pictures I've seen. I have just never seen this level of disinformation coming out of the MSM that I've seen here in the past week or so. So this is just unreal. Here's the truth. If Russia was inclined to end this war tomorrow, they could take Kiev in a couple of hours. They have an arsenal of very powerful non-nuclear weapons that, at least so far, they haven't used. Thermobaric bombs, massive artillery, cyber warfare, just to name a few. And if you don't know, or if you'd like to see it, let me know down in the comments. But I saw a whole printout the other day of just basically capabilities, USA versus Russia. And in the air, on the Air Force side, we've got them beat hands down. We've got way more airplanes, way more capability. Our planes are way better, stuff like that. But if you remember, back in the Rumsfeld era, they got us away from a lot of our artillery, our tracked artillery vehicles, and even towable artillery. They got us out of that, and they got us into all these new weapons of the future, as they called them, like the Javelin and things like that. One of the problems that the Ukrainians weren't aware of is that the Javelins actually have to be charged up. They have a little battery in there that operates all the high-tech gadgetry inside of them. So if you don't charge them, they're worthless. They're only good for using as a club against your enemy. They're not going to fire a Javelin rocket if they're not charged up. So there are some advantages, obviously. Targeting and things like that and precision are a lot better on weapons like the Javelin. But as far as putting down a lot of firepower in a short amount of time, it's hard to beat artillery. So Russia has kind of keyed into that, and they have kept almost all of their artillery. And in fact, as far as artillery and mobile rockets and things like that, they have way more stuff than us. As far as nuclear bombs, I don't know how the numbers compare, but I do know the yield is much higher. Russia put out a bomb one time, the biggest nuclear bomb of all time. It was called the Tsar Bomba or something like that. The biggest, it was like, I can't even remember how many megatons it was, but it was massive. The biggest nuclear explosion we've ever seen. And there are videos on that you can go watch. I mean, is that something that you want to happen over the farm belt of the United States of America, or over, the eastern seaboard or the western seaboard? Is that something that you want to see happen? Is the Tsar Bomba or Bomba Tsar, whatever they called it, the biggest bomb ever, the mother or father of all bombs? Is that what you want to see dropped on one of the coasts of the United States or right over the farmland? Could you imagine what that would do? Shouldn't we be proceeding with caution like responsible adults instead of poking the bear in the chest? I don't know. These are just questions I ask myself. Here's a whole list of like 10 more things that I've had to write down because this is just pure classical definition of disinformation coming straight out of Ukraine. Okay, so there was a Ukrainian father crying as he hugged his daughter, and it turned out it was actually a pro-Russian rebel in Donbass preparing to fight the Nazi Azov battalion. And the media has been denying that there is even any Nazi existence over there because Putin said he was going to denazify the Ukraine. And ever since he said that, the media is like, there's no Nazis here. How could there be a Nazi there? I mean, Zelensky's a Jew. How could there be a Nazi there? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I read this whole story where Zelensky has been going around basically turning these Azov people, these Nazis, neo-Nazis, into a police force of type, a type of police force that he can use there in different cities and stuff. So he's adopted this. I'm not saying Zelensky's a Nazi. What I'm saying is he's looked the other way and using their forces to fight Russia. I mean, they have people on their council or whatever, their Congress, their version of Parliament or whatever they call it over there. They have people that do the Nazi salute before they have session. So, I mean, this is just over the top. I didn't think any Nazis existed like that in this world that were open like that, much less in positions of power, but they are in Ukraine. So what does that tell you about the system over there? I mean, it tells me it's loaded with corruption. Number 2, 13 Ukrainian soldiers died on Snake Island because they said, fuck you, Russia, and they held the ground, and the Russians were so scared they just went away, right? No, that's not true. They actually surrendered and are alive and well. So the whole Snake Island story, a lie, disinformation. Number 3, Russian tank that ran over a civilian car in Kiev was actually a Strela-10 Ukrainian air defense system. So they were trying to say, oh, just mean old Russians just running over civilian cars, had nothing to do with the war effort or anything. Well, it turned out it was actually an air defense system. That's how they're spinning this crap. Photos next up here. Photos of Zelensky in military garb with a helmet are actually from the 2021 border inspection. So they're putting all these soldier boy pictures of him up, and again, making him look like, Captain Ukrainian or whatever you'd say. I mean, he's a Marvel superhero now, don't you know? According to the MSM liars here that are running our country and the world too. So anyways, next up here, a video of a Ukrainian MiG-29 shooting down a Russian Su-35. As it turns out, it was actually a digital combat simulator animation. So next up, they say there was a Russian cruise missile that blew up the side of a residential building. It was actually a Ukrainian air defense missile fired by the Ukrainian military. So anytime it's convenient, they blame the Russians. There's another one here, a viral video of a Ukrainian pilot shooting down a Russian jet was screen recorded from Arma 3, a video game. It just, seriously guys, they didn't think anyone would catch on to this stuff. That's how dumb they think people are. And what's sad about it is 81 million people apparently are that dumb. Ukrainian military lied about blowing up 56 tanks that included General Tushayev. So they were claiming that they blew up some, famous General Tushayev, and 56 tanks. Well, it turns out that was a fabrication. This last one is probably the biggest doozy that I've seen in a long time. Have you heard of the legend of the Ghost of Kiev? I mean, this guy single-handedly shot down 6 Russian aircraft to achieve ace-in-a-day status. I mean, it's unbelievable. This guy, he's the Ukrainian version of Top Gun, guys. I mean, this is amazing. According to the internet claims, the Ghost of Kiev chalked up 6 air-to-air kills with no less than 2 Russian Sukhoi Su-35s and a Russian Su-27 flanker, a Russian MiG-29, and 2 Russian Su-25 ground attack aircraft allegedly shot down. And he's still fighting, at least according to the internet. So, guys, if you'll believe that, I've got some oceanfront property for sale in Arizona, and I'd like to get, I'm selling it real cheap. So you can come talk to me in the comments and we'll hook you up with that. But I'm telling you, every single thing these people have said has turned out to be a lie. The question is, why do 81 million Americans still believe the lie? My conclusion is because they're complicit in the destruction of the United States of America. And anything they can do to make us lose power, lose financial capability, spending abilities, stuff like that, anything they can do to bring in inflation, anything they can do to raise the gas prices, to hurt the American family, that's what they're going to do. And I do find it very interesting that as I've been reading about Vladimir Putin and some of his positions that he's been talking about for, decades now, he puts a big emphasis on the Russian family unit and stuff like that. And also when he first came in, he got them off of a lot of, he got them out of debt with a lot of the, I believe it was the Rothschilds that had him basically by the horns. And he was, Russia, when he took office, Russia was in mega debt with the Rothschild family. So, of course, when you're in debt with somebody like that, that means they have some control, some sway over what you do, what actions you take, things like that. Well, Putin didn't like that, so he doubled down and basically doubled up on his payments and paid these people off and then kicked them out of the country. So, could this be, I'm not saying that Putin's a great guy, but could this be that Putin sees an imminent threat from the globalists of the New World Order? And he's trying to show by this small, military operation that he's not going to take it. I mean, I don't know. I'm hearing all sorts of stuff about bioweapons labs that have been targeted and attacked. As I did research on that, it turns out there were 11 bioweapons labs in Ukraine, maybe not run by, but built by the United States of America. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? I saw a video recently where they were shooting some Ukrainian people in one of their government buildings, and these guys were burning crates and crates of documents outside of their building. So what's that about? There is more to this story than the media is letting on. And again, I'm not saying I'm a Russophile or, I'm not anti-Russian either. I mean, to me, it seems as if, from an outsider's perspective, Putin has come in and tried to make Russia more independent, and the globalists don't like that. That's what I think this is really about. When you cut through all the propaganda, I think at the end of the day, Russia and China, although those are both America's enemies, they believe the source of the New World Order, or the power of the New World Order, is here in the United States. And that's what I think this whole thing's about. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, I read an amazing story earlier today about how China actually has a plan during this whole time. When everybody's distracted with the Ukraine situation, China is planning on hitting us with a sucker punch when we're not expecting it, and taking Taiwan. And it won't just be Taiwan. They want the United States of America. They want every single one of us that's not them dead. And they want to come and populate this country because they're running out of room and resources and lots of stuff like that, and women. So I see Russia as a really blown opportunity. Things remained relatively peaceful between the United States and Russia during the Trump administration. And of course, if you remember, in 2016, Hillary said if one single cyber attack came from Russia, she was going to openly declare war and go to war with Russia. So the Democrats have wanted this for a long time. This is their excuse. Right now, they're trying to skirt around the edges of it and pretend like they're not all in, but they're all in, guys. Watch out for the hawks and the rhinos on the right, too. There are a lot of them that are all in on this, and they're buying into this mainstream media garbage about Zelensky and the poor Ukrainian people. And I'm not saying that there aren't any innocent people being harmed during this whole thing with Russia. I'm sure there are. But the fact is, and you can go search this, the Ukraine is, if not the most corrupt country in the entire world. It's the top 5 most corrupt countries in the entire world. And it's no coincidence that George, the evil one, Soros, has got his hands all over this stuff. And of course, he's one of the puppet masters that's whispering in Biden's ear. So guys, prepare like there is no tomorrow, because at one point there may not be. Let's just hope and pray this doesn't go nuclear, which is what I think. My gut is telling me that that's what they actually want, because they want. There have been plans talked about where they believe that they can actually function with only 20% of the population. They think everything will still function, and maybe they're right. Maybe 20% of the population could function all the systems that we currently have in place. But what that means is they want to get rid of the rest of us that are not in that 20%. Scary times to be alive, guys. It feels biblical to me. It feels like we're entering in to the next phase of the end times. I don't know if that's true or not, but one thing that does give me hope and solace is I know that if you read it all the way to the end, Jesus is coming back, and when he does, he's going to take down all these monsters with him. So make sure you guys are on the right side of things. You sure don't want to get caught with the evil one on his side. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I stand for liberty. I hope you do too. We'll see you next time.